Good morning. I welcome you all to this exceptional conclave. Let's begin by looking at the wonderful journey of Water Digest over these 15 eventful years.
If water had a voice, what would it say to us? Would it cry out against the intolerable way in which we use it? Would it warn us of the dangers of overusing groundwater? Would it advise us to practice reduce, reuse, and recycle? Considering the crisis that we are facing now, it is quite possible that it would do all of the above. This is exactly what Water Digest has been doing. In 2006, in response to the growing water crisis around the world, Water Digest was started with the aim of becoming the voice of water. Today, we have reached a point where we not only advocate for water, but play an active role in facilitating the policies and projects in water. What started as a small trickle of a magazine has today expanded into a mighty river spanning an internet portal, a highly respected annual award function, national and international conferences, and much more. Over the years, Water Digest has achieved much in its role as a mouthpiece for water. Water Digest's awards function, portal, and conferences have become indispensable staples of the industry. All this has, of course, given us the opportunity to interact with some truly tremendous people. And like rivers that know no boundaries, we too have crossed borders and represented the water media of the country at various international water events and trade meets. While some may see that as a long time, for Water Digest, it is but a drop in the ocean. This is but the beginning of a truly majestic journey. When we started out in 2006, we didn't know all this would happen. All we knew was that water was in a dire situation and needed a voice. That voice, Water Digest, is listened to in the entire industry. And while we can't say with any certainty what will happen over the years, one thing we can say for sure is that the voice of water will never be silent.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Water Digest, I would like to welcome our dignitaries, panelists, and all the eminent delegates and personalities to the online Water Digest Global Conclave 2021, supported by the Department of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation, Ministry of Jal Shakti, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, and our key partners, Delhi Jal Board and Electroshield Castings Limited. For the past 15 years, Water Digest has been promoting and building awareness on critical issues pertaining to water. It has been facilitating efficient management and use of water on an environmentally sustainable basis. In continuation with our efforts to raise awareness and encourage action around water and its related issues, Water Digest has been actively organizing conclaves and creating platforms where people of the water industry and government present their views on the challenges of the sector. We are glad to host you all at this online conclave today. In this online conclave, we share our concerns and interests to act upon the cause of effective water management and bring a solution favorable bring a solution favorable to all. We appreciate you all for taking out time from your busy schedules to join us today at this conclave. To begin with, our inaugural session. Today, we are fortunate to have with us Ms. Anupama Madhu, Director and Editor, Water Digest, and our guests of honors, Mr. A.B. Pandya, Editor-in-Chief, Water Digest and Secretary General, ICID, Mr. Eric Ford, Director and UNESCO Representative to India, Bhutan, Maldives, and Sri Lanka, Shri Rajiv Rajan Mishra, IAS, Director General, National Mission for Clean Ganga, Shri Durga Shankar Mishra, IAS, Honorable Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Shri Pankaj Kumar, IAS, Honorable Secretary, Ministry of Jal Shakti, Shri Ratanlal Kataria, Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Jal Shakti. I would request Ms. Anupama Madhu, Director and Editor, Water Digest, to propose a welcome address.
My greetings to everyone present here today. I would like to begin by talking about that one framework that all of us have our eyes on, Sustainable Development Goal 6, which aims to make safe drinking water available sustainably and equitably. Access to clean drinking water is increasingly becoming a far-fetched dream determined by plethora of socio-economic, socio-cultural, and geographic factors. That is exactly why the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda incorporates water and sanitation for all by 2030 under the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically SDG 6. The scarcity of water is the biggest rift that we all have witnessed as a global community. Despite being a medium that supports our existence and our presence, water is moving down all our priority lists. Shortage of water affects more than 40% of people worldwide. This alarming figure is projected to rise. The number of countries experiencing water stress is increasing, and desertification is worsening this adversity. The United Nations, as a global representative for humanity, human life, and resources, dedicates a day to water on the World Water Day every year to outline and remind the world that it needs to step up and make efforts to conserve, recycle, and realign judicious use of water resources. This year's theme was Valuing Water, which extends beyond issues of pricing to include the environmental, social, and cultural value people place on the water. The aim is to understand how people value water, whether it is economically, socially, culturally, or in some other way, how it is important and how it plays a role in their lives. Keeping up with the theme of this year's World Water Day, we present to you this global conclave being planned on global water security. Like all our endeavors, this global conclave is aimed at uplifting the importance of water in people's lives.
Thank you so much, Ms. Madhu. I would request Shri A.B. Pandya, Editor-in-Chief, Water Digest and Secretary General, ICID, to present his opening address.
So it is indeed a matter of great pleasure that the Water Digest is organizing a global conclave on water management with the theme of the role of technology in uplifting global water security. The technology is playing a very vital role in improving the increasingly stressed water resources availability. And this year's theme of valuing water is very apt for this purpose, because in this case large amount of value to the water is added by the technology while generating the acceptable quality water resources, conveying them, distributing them, and also accounting for them. Everywhere the technology plays a very vital role, and it is necessary for us to leverage these technologies, because then only we will be able to optimally utilize our water resources and also provide with a great help to the society in having ensured their well-being and good health. The technologies play a very vital role in managing the water resources. We have to start from the assessing the water resources, wherein the remote sensing and GIS applications have made great strides in making a global understanding of the water resources availability. We also have technologies which are capable of providing us with the conservation structures like dams and other storage structures where we can store the raw water as per our needs and then distribute them. The real challenge has come in the treatment of water. With the great amount of pollution that is happening, there are ambient pollutions and then there are also the stresses induced due to the reutilization of water at many places upstream. The water becomes polluted and the treatment has to be carried out in order to bring it back to its pristine quality for fit for human and various other consumptions. A good amount of technological input is becoming very, very necessary. If we do not have this component in place, the benefits of setting up various infrastructure will not be to the commensurate level. So it is very, very important for us to know what technologies are available, how we can reduce the costs of such treatments, and then with the reduction in this cost of the treatment, the technologies and the solutions can become ubiquitous. There are also challenges of scale. What solutions are amenable to very large scale usages, where very large quantities of water are to be treated, may not be very effective when we have to do the same with the small quantities at the local level, maybe at the rural level. There may be constraints of maintenance, there may be constraints of sophistication which may be absorbed by the local population in order to run those facilities in themselves, and also the sustainability of these technologies. So this conclave, I do believe, will give us a great opportunity to share the thoughts, listen to the needs that are there in the sector for better technological interventions, improved methodologies, and also collecting more and more information about the new and challenging areas that are coming up in the technological developments, which can be very beneficially utilized for our purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Moving forward, now I request Mr. Eric Holt, Director and UNESCO Representative to India, Bhutan, Maldives, and Sri Lanka, to present the special address.
Ladies and gentlemen, water is our most precious resource. It is the foundation of our life, cross-cutting all social, cultural, economic, and environmental services. But still, over 2 billion people do not have direct access to it. Let us consider the facts and acknowledge that global water use has increased by a factor of 6 over the past 100 years, and that it continues to grow steadily at a rate of about 1% per year as a result of increasing population, economic development, and shifting consumption patterns. Safe drinking water and sanitation are recognized as basic human rights, but presently 3 out of 10 people do not have access to safe drinking water, and 6 out of 10 people do not have access to safely managed sanitation services. Climate change has further exacerbated this challenge, and it is estimated that by 2050, climate change will cause a 10% decline in freshwater availability, affecting 685 million people living in over 57 cities. Leaving no one behind is at the heart of the commitment of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So how do we solve this equation? UNESCO, for one, has been working towards building the scientific knowledge base to help countries manage their water resources in a sustainable way. This is our mandate through our intergovernmental hydrological program, through the development of the UN-wide World Water Development Report, and through numerous centers and chairs on water around the world. This year's UN-wide World Water Development Report addresses the question of the value of water, which is also the theme of World Water Day 2021. It shows that waste and careless use stems from the fact we all too often think of water exclusively in terms of its cost, without realizing its tremendous value, which is, of course, impossible to price. While monetary valuation has the advantage of convenience and easy legibility, it presents the disadvantage of underestimating, even excluding other aspects that are more difficult to monetize. How do we quantify, for instance, the implications of the 443 million school days missed annually due to water-related diseases? Similarly, providing access to safe drinking water and sanitation to all would cost $114 billion per year. But the multiple social and economic benefits of safe water are difficult to evaluate. These issues are at the heart of this year's edition of the United Nations World Water Development Report, which is the UN Water's flagship publication on water and sanitation issues, which, as you probably know, focuses on a different theme every year. UNESCO believes that by working together, we can identify solutions to help us on our way to a sustainable and prosperous world without leaving anyone behind. I therefore look forward to the output from this global conclave and its concrete suggestions on how to leave no one behind when it comes to water. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would request Shri Rajiv Ranjan Mishra, Director General, National Mission for Clean Ganga, to present his special address.
I congratulate the organizers of this global conclave on water management. The issues are very, very important to be deliberated, looking at how technology can play a role in various aspects of water management and wastewater management. I see they are going to deliberate upon the SDG level policies and also how technology can play in ensuring affordable drinking water and also proper wastewater management. Recycle and reuse of treated wastewater is also a very, very important area, and I am very happy that deliberations are also flagging this issue for bringing the right kind of technology and exchange of ideas. It's very much required to exchange ideas, exchange and know about the best practices, both national and international, learn from them, develop the right kind of business models, and then apply them for deliverable projects, because that only can really lead to cleaner water resources, better management of water, more nature-based solution, while also ensuring that community understands, community participates in this overall exercise of global water management and ensuring our water security. Once again, I compliment and convey my best wishes for the success of this conference. I'm quite sure the lessons learned from this, these will be documented and circulated for wider use and applications and usefulness.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Shri Durga Shankar Mishra, Honorable Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, to present the keynote address.
A very good morning to everybody who has joined this global water management conclave being organized by the Water Digest for the next 2 days on 24th and 25th of March. At the outset, let me first congratulate and thank Water Digest for organizing a conclave on such an important subject. Water is so much essential for our living that all the civilizations, all the cities, even the rural areas, they have developed around water. We cannot live without it. It was for the first time that in 2015, through the Atal Mission for Urban Rejuvenation and Transformation, that water as an infrastructure was given so much of importance that a mission for 500 cities with nearly 100,000 crores of allocation covering nearly 60% of the population, was launched on 25th of June 2015 by the Honorable Prime Minister. The focus was to provide water tap connection every household, to improve the sewer connection or the sewer and septage management, also improve the drainage system. Apart from that, some green areas and some urban transport. I am happy to share that so far we have been able to provide more than 101 lakh water tap connections. We have been able to give more than 67 lakhs of sewer connections. But yet there is a long way to go. And now the Honorable Finance Minister in her budget speech has announced for a Jal Jeevan Mission Urban. We already have a Jal Jeevan Mission Rural running for over a year. But now a Jal Jeevan Mission Urban uses the capacity which has been built over the last 5 and 6 years to make our cities water secure. It is not only providing an infrastructure for getting water tap connections, but making all our cities, which is 4,372, with population more than 40 crore, fully water secure. That means we will not only address the issue of providing a gap of nearly 2.87 crores of water tap connections in all the cities, to provide nearly 2.68 crore connections of sewer or septage in all these cities, but also making sure that the non-revenue water, the wastage of water, is reduced to less than 20%. To make sure that we reuse the wastewater after treatment, minimum 20% are consumed in the city itself, and at least 40% of the industrial requirement comes from this recycled water, which has been treated after with the wastewater through the different processes. And we'll address through use of technologies. We would like to get the best technologies across the globe which is there. Like recently, we had got the best technology in the construction on this Water Day, which is coming tomorrow, and also with everybody who is participating in 2 days discussion, that all that things which are going to come up, they will help us in improving through the policy measures, through the program measures, and through other measures which will make our place better place to live. Wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I request Shri Pankaj Kumar, IAS, Honorable Secretary, Ministry of Jal Shakti, to present the keynote address.
I'm happy to know that a global conclave on water management is being organized by the Water Digest in collaboration with the Ministry of Jal Shakti and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Water is a very precious resource, as we know, and its availability has been declining over decades in many parts of the world, including India. Therefore, there is a need to act on water issues at all levels, including the local level. And it is with that objective in mind that the government has been organizing the Jal Shakti Abhiyan, which started in 2019, and it's also going to be organized this year, starting from March 22, which will be launched by the Prime Minister himself. The Jal Shakti Abhiyan, as also other efforts of the Ministry of Jal Shakti, they concentrate on water conservation, and there is also a need to look at other ways of conserving water, including reuse of water, because a lot of water which is treated as wastewater has to be through appropriate interventions recycled and reused. So that is another effort in which we should all engage in. We should bring all efforts together, all expertise together, all programs together to see that we conserve water in the most efficient way possible. I wish the global conclave all success in its deliberations, and I am hopeful that it will throw up interesting issues and challenges for all of us to ponder over in the interest of water conservation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I request Shri Ratanlal Kataria, Honorable Minister of State, Government of India, to present the special inaugural address.
आप सभी उपस्थित साथियों को नमस्कार व धन्यवाद। आज भारतवर्ष में जल प्रबंधन का विषय चर्चा का विषय बना हुआ है। हमारे बहुत से स्टेक होल्डर और अन्य एनजीओज इस बारे में सारे देश के अंदर एक जन जागरण अभियान चला रहे हैं। इसको लेकर अनेकों ठोस कदम भी देश के अंदर उठाए जा रहे हैं और यह हम सब के लिए खुशी की बात है कि इस अनमोल धरोहर को लेकर आज देश में सकारात्मक माहौल भी बना है। आज इस जल प्रबंधन के विषय को लेकर देश इसलिए भी चिंतित है कि हम सारी दुनिया की आबादी का 18% का प्रतिनिधित्व हम करते हैं, लेकिन हमारे पास विश्व का केवल 4% जल ही उपलब्ध है। साथियों, जल संरक्षण इसीलिए अति महत्वपूर्ण हो जाता है। जल स्थानीय उपयोग से लेकर कृषि एवं उद्योग तक एक मूलभूत आवश्यक अंग है, जिसके द्वारा यह सभी कार्य सफलतापूर्वक किए जाते हैं। अतः इस प्राकृतिक संसाधन का संरक्षण करना हमारे लिए अति आवश्यक है। नदी, तालाब, झील, जलाशय एवं भूजल के जल के दुरुपयोग के कारण आज हमें भीषण जल संकट का सामना करना पड़ रहा है और शायद आने वाले समय में यह संकट और भी बढ़ जाए। मानव आबादी बढ़ने के कारण पृथ्वी के जल पर एक गहरा प्रभाव पड़ा है, जिससे अधिक मात्रा में जल दूषित हो जाता है, जो पीने योग्य नहीं रहता है। आइए वाटर डाइजेस्ट द्वारा आयोजित किए जा रही ग्लोबल कॉन्क्लेव का हिस्सा बने। मैं आशा करता हूं कि यह कॉन्क्लेव हमारे लिए जल प्रबंधन के विषय में एक नई शुरुआत करने में अहम भूमिका निभाएगी और भारत के सामने जो वाटर स्ट्रेस की प्रॉब्लम आने वाले समय में खड़ी हो सकती है, उसका निदान करने में इस प्रकार के कॉन्क्लेव जो हैं वो बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण साबित होंगे। इन शब्दों के साथ मैं अपने वक्तव्य को विराम देना चाहूंगा। आप सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। नमस्कार। जय हिंद। भारत माता की जय।
Thank you so much, sir, for inspiring us with your words. We begin our first session. The first panel of the session includes Sri G. Ashok Kumar, Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Water Mission; Sri Salab Kumar, Member Water Supply, Delhi Jal Board; Sri Prabhat Kumar Mishra, IAS, Principal Secretary, Government of West Bengal and Project Director, WBAD-MIP. Ms. Anupama Madhok will be the moderator for the first panel. Over to you, Ms. Madhok.
Hello? Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Pallavi. And good morning, sir. And I'm so glad to have wonderful start of this conclave with the wonderful inaugural session and the first session, which specifically talks about global security, towards global security and water security, and specifically highlighting the sustainable development goals. I'm glad we have wonderful panelists today. We have with us Mr. G. Ashok Kumar, Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Water Mission. We thought when we talk about sustainable development goals, and there are so many, pointers pertaining to various goals under Sustainable Development Goals 6 also, which focuses on water. We thought who else could be the right person other than Ashok Ji with us, and here he is, who has joined us today. The next panelist we have with us is Mr. Prabhat Kumar Mishra, Principal Secretary, Water Resources Department, Government of West Bengal. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. And we all know the kind of work you've been doing as far as specifically irrigation sector is concerned, the kind of technological interventions being brought by you. And we thought it will be apt if we hear from you, from your experiences, and how and what is the roadmap for the further policy interventions. So we'll start shortly, and the third very eminent speaker who will be joining us shortly would be Mr. Shalab Kumar, Member, Water Supply, Delhi Jal Board. And Shalabji will be joining us in a while. And I would like to start from the views of Mr. Ashok Kumar. So coming to sustainable, Ashok sir, coming to sustainable development goals, wherein the agenda specifically talks about sustainable consumptions, innovations, etc. When we come to sustainable consumptions, country like India, which is one of the leading producer of crops, maybe wheat and rice, and we are like one among three leading countries in the production. When it comes to water productivity, I think we lag behind. And there had been a lot of emphasis on increasing water use efficiency in irrigation. And if I am saying right, one of the goals of National Water Mission also focuses on increasing water use efficiency by 20% through various sectors. So I would like to know from your side that what are the kind of initiatives taken forward to achieve this agenda, like reaching out to the sustainable consumption by increasing water use efficiency. It was announced in 2016, and we are already in 2021, and we have to achieve the things by 2030. So what we have done, what we have achieved, and what is the way forward? Over to you, Ashokji.
Good morning, everybody. I congratulate the Water Digest for organizing this seminar. We have very close association with Water Digest. National Water Mission had been holding these water talks on every third Fridays, and very eminent water people used to come and join us in this water talk. And we also used to have a water tech talk on every second Friday. So we have been very closely associated with Water Digest. So I congratulate them organizing this World Water Conclave also. Before answering the question, I would like to also to thank and congratulate the people of India for joining us in the probably one of the largest campaign launch in the world on water, which was done on 22nd March, World Water Day, by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, where we started the Jal Shakti Abhiyan Catch the Rain campaign by the Honorable Prime Minister addressing all the sarpanchas and all the DMs of all states of the country, except the one which is the pole-bound state. So Prabhat may not know it because he is in West Bengal, a pole-bound state. All other states the sarpanches and the district magistrates and the senior officials were involved in it. And this is going to be a very big game changer in the country, because this is probably the first time we are addressing the supply side of the in such a large scale, getting everybody in the country involved in a campaign much before the start of monsoon, so that we will be ready to catch the rain when it falls and where it falls. So this, if it really goes off well, which I think I have the indications from our reports on the awareness campaign which we did, this is going to be a very, very major intervention. Probably we'll hope to achieve the target of Tangar Mukt Bharat truly. Okay. Having said that, coming to a specific question on implementation of SDG and the increasing the water use efficiency. Yes, National Water Mission was formed in 2011 specifically to address the issues related to climate change and the impact on its on water. And the goal 4 of the National Water Mission specifically mentions about increasing the water use efficiency in agriculture. This is a very important point, because our water use efficiency is very, very poor. It's less than 30%. And India is one country where, probably the only country where the large percentage of water is used for agriculture. More than 90% of the water is used for agriculture, and only 10% of water usage is for irrigation, for drinking water and domestic purposes. And though we make a lot of clamor about the drinking water issue, because actually if you can save a lot of water in agriculture, but there's tremendous scope for that, we'll be very, very comfortable with the water sector, provided we can improve the water use efficiency in agriculture. So water use efficiency issues are related in agriculture also, and water use efficiency are related in industry and other aspects of also. I'll come to that. So there is a tremendous scope for improvement of water use efficiency in India. If you look at the water footprint of the various things being done in India, it is much, much more than a developed nation, or even as the nations which are like our neighboring countries. For a farmer in India requires about 3,000 to 4,000 liters of water for producing 1 kilo of paddy, whereas a farmer in USA or even neighboring countries like Thailand and all, they use only about 800 liters of water. So the water footprint itself is about the same product is about 4 times, 5 times more. And that is the one reason where we extract the largest quantity of water in the world, groundwater from the world. In the world, India takes about 250 billion liters of groundwater every year, and this is much more than the combined extraction of groundwater from USA, China, and Mexico. This is the type of volume of water which we take it out from the water, but fail to replenish. And that's where the Catch the Rain campaign is very important. It says catch the rain where it falls, when it falls, where we try to store water decentralized and replenish in the aquifers. Now, coming back to the water use efficiency, as I said, the baseline studies which National Water Mission is being conducted, or we have the figures with us of certain areas, the water use efficiency is less than 30%. Whereas, as I said, the developed countries, they go up to about 60%, 70%, and Israel goes up to about 95, 96%. So it's a tremendous scope for improvement. But we have to know how to improve that using technology. We have to guide them through policies. We have to nudge the farmers and the people, all the stakeholders, for better increased efficiency. Now, water being a state subject, the central government has probably a limited role in the controlling the use and demand of water, but we can play a definite, very important role in nudging the states to make good policies in this regard. So as I said, the biggest consumer of water is agriculture in India, and there is tremendous scope for improvement. So we have actually been writing to state governments on improving the water usage and efficiency by improving better methods of irrigation. Government of India policy also, whether it is the PMKSY, where we use more crop per drop system, pushing people for better irrigation facilities like sprinkler irrigation or micro irrigation systems, where water usage can be saved to about 70%. We have a traditional method of flood irrigation in agriculture, where we flood the fields and then use the farm to farm irrigation, which is a huge waste of water due to evapotranspiration, and also waste of water because water unnecessarily gets flooded there, and it also increased to the labor cost by letting the weeds and all grow. So I'm not talking about the very precise agriculture technology like precision agriculture using artificial intelligence, where the Israelis do. They give the drop of water, exact quantity of water at the right time to the root zone, so that the water which is dropped in is almost 100% picked up by the root for use of generating fruits, etc. That I'm not talking about that high level technology, but we still can have better use of technology, better farming methods, better irrigation methods, where we can reduce the water in a big way. So that's one aspect, a policy we have to nudge and encourage farmers to go for better irrigation facilities and better irrigation techniques where water can be saved. Second is about the use of the right crops, because our crops are very water intensive many places. Our water footprint is very large. So when we are actually exporting paddy from one place to another place, actually we are moving a lot of water. A classic example is Punjab, where 92% of the paddy produced is exported out of the state through FCI or to other parts of the country or other parts of the world. But in effect, they are actually taking out water from the underground and then exporting water. We have to really try to contain the farmers to going for these crops which use water intensive cultivation like sugarcane, paddy and wheat, etc. But we have to have food security, so these should be grown in areas where these are suitable. So that's why National Master Water Mission had started a campaign called Sahi Fasal. Sahi Fasal is basically to nudge farmers to go for crops which are water efficient, which are less water intensive and water efficient, but also give reasonable remuneration to farmers. So we are now advocating in a policy telling that it should be more income per drop. It is not more crop per drop, because in a monetized economy, farmers are interested in the money or the income they get from the crop. So instead of increasing the productivity, with the traditional agriculture ministry and department people keep on trying to increase the productivity of a crop, actually it should be trying to increase the income of the farmers, more efficient use of water and more using a better cropping patterns to generate income, more income for the farmers. A farmer spends 20,000 and gets 40,000, and a farmer who spends 80,000 and get 1 lakh rupees. They both get the net income of 20,000 only. So we should also try to educate farmers to get more income per drop of water. That's one aspect of it. Second policy is, whether we can look at it. We have to have look at different policies of different departments. See, very interestingly, India, many states offer free electricity, and free electricity is one of the biggest dampener for the water sector in the country. Because free electricity is subsidized power encourages farmers to go more and more water from the underground, and they are not bothered about the quantity of water being pumped out, because the water is getting free. Nobody charges for the water and nobody charges for electricity. So more and more water gets pumped up, and that is one of the major reasons why we are very poor in water use efficiency. But in fact, states like Punjab, you would be surprised to know that 70% of the irrigation in that area is through groundwater, not from surface water. So that we have to have a policy of better in trying to curtail the water subsidy on electricity given. We also like to have that pricing as a mechanism to control the extra water usage, and also by that way increasing the water use efficiency. We also should have water regulatory authorities in place, because there's no one department which handles water in the state. Many departments handle water. There's a urban department, there's a rural development department, there's the irrigation department, there's a water resource department, there's a groundwater department. So plethora of organizations are working in silos, and and the biggest sufferer is the water. And agriculture department being the largest demand extractor of water, they also work safely. So we have to have a water policy where we all these are combined together and look at water in a holistic way. New water policy, which is being worked out, is actually tries to address these issues, where we try to address the demand supply also, demand supply management also, and also at the cross-cutting policy interventions required to ensure that the water usage efficiency is increased. So definitely policy intervention is required, both from the state government and the central government, and we should work together and come out of the silos which we work presently on water sector, using less water, potable water for non-potable use. That has to be stopped totally. We have to use that 5 hours, recycle, reuse water, and also recover water from the waste which come out, and also try to increase the respect for water. These are the couple of policy things which we are working on. Wastewater reuse is one major scope, major area where a lot of work can be done. Recovery of water from the STPs and from the industrial effluents, and using that for non-potable purposes is another policy where some of the states have done very well. So these are some of the major interventions which we can use for increasing the water use efficiency in the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And I hope that with these technical interventions which we have just shared, and also the policy interventions which we are expecting, that upcoming policies may address. In fact, very important is remuneration to be paid to the farmers, that too increased when they switch over to these specific crops. And we hope that even when you talk about Punjab and rice being grown in Punjab, we hope that the formation of Water Regulatory Authority will give us new policies and new direction, and will soon have will be working in the right direction, achieving the sustainable goal, specifically highlight about increasing water use efficiency. With this, thank you so much, Ashokji. I understand you have to move on for the next conference soon, and we really thank you to be part of this program today and taking out time on this for this special session. This would not have been complete without your inputs. So thank you so much. I would now, yes. Thank you. We now proceed to our next speaker, an eminent speaker, Mr. Prabhat Kumar Mishra, Principal Secretary, Water Resources Department, Government of West Bengal. First of all, thank you so much, sir, for accepting our request to be here, because we were really keen to know when we talk about sustainable goals and sustainable development goals, and specifically 6.6a, which talks about technological interventions. We wanted to know that SDGs do focus on technological interventions. What parameters need to be taken into account while implementing technology for water management in the Indian context? And giving reference to West Bengal, I'll be more than happy to hear from your side. Over to you, Prabhatji. I request you to kindly unmute yourself, Prabhatji.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, please. Please.
Good morning, everybody. So, thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. Uh, Nothing could be really more relevant than implementing technology, because technology has a lot of uh, it gives us a lot of hope that water would be managed appropriately, something which Ashok sir was pointing out. So I mean, just to precisely answer your question, in Indian context, let us remember that we have small land holdings. Small land holdings means that the economies of scale which we expect when we implement a tool and a technology is not always readily available. In addition, the income of farmers is less, so there will be low and medium and marginal small farmers with medium income. So it's difficult to expect that they will be bearing the cost of technology. Then there is also the problem of low literacy and education in different parts of the country. So, if a technology is quite complicated, complex, then it becomes slightly difficult. So, because of all these reasons, uh, Indian context becomes slightly different from, let's say, Western countries, or where there are very large farm sizes where the income is very high of a farmer, and they are able to implement technology at a much wider scale. A lot of economies of scale using tools like artificial intelligence and machine learning and all that. But then these these things, if we directly want to translate into Indian context, I'm afraid that will not really be possible. So we have to think about those technological interventions which are customized to Indian context, keeping in view all the different parameters that I just mentioned.
Great. So, sir, when you talk about India, like you said, there has to be specific tools which should be applied, seeing the Indian context, the kind of land holding we have, the kind of availability of space, and other limitations also which we have being in India. So, which technological tools have you already implemented, and how do you find them? Whether you find them useful, if so, that what were, I'm sure there must be challenges when you must be implementing these technological tools, on ground. So what were the kind of tools which were used? Which of them were quite successful? And did you face any challenges? And if yes, while rolling out those technological interventions on ground, what were those, sir? Over to you.
See, uh, the first point I'll pick up from the small land holding, and the I mean, essentially, when we try to implement technology, we have to think not only about the technology but also the institutional aspect, which will actually go into the implementation of that technology. And looking at the small fragmented land holdings in India, the 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 intervention which we have seen working quite well is the group approach. That is, let's say, water user associations. So if we are having, let's say, a well, a source of water, and then there is a command area where there are, let's say, a group of 10, 12, 15 farmers, then these farmers can be put in the form of a water user association, and then this water user association can, in fact, it is generally, it is much easier to implement a technology like, let's say, a drip irrigation. If we have a check dam, then a lot of water is there, and then we can have a common source with a solar panel with a pumping system, and then the drip channels, that the tubes can run to different plots, and this common infrastructure can really be sustained by a group of farmers rather than an individual farmer. So that's where the institutional aspect is very important while we are trying to implement a technology. We have been able to use uh, the as Ashok sir was pointing out, the challenge of water use efficiency, and all of us are aware that a lot of flood irrigation happens, and most of it happens in good faith, farmers feel that the more the merry. I mean, the more water you apply, then the more crop you will get, and that is really not correct. That's not true. And we have seen that small devices like a tensiometer, which is available in market now at a price of, let's say, 10, 12,000 rupees. It is like just like a thermometer, and it just, you have to just put it in a field, and then it will give you the moisture content level. And for different types of soil, let's say clayey or sandy or loamy and whatever, the water carrying capacity of this different type of soil is different, and accordingly different amount of irrigation needs to be. There is a range of actually soil moisture which is most optimal for a crop. So water user association, they have a common source of irrigation, let's say, and then what they can do, and they have, and that is how we have done it, is that the water distribution meeting can be preceded by every week. In fact, every week they have a water distribution meeting, and it is preceded by the data. So what is the soil level, soil moisture level? So the that is collected, and then accordingly the water distribution plan is formulated for that week. So we have tried it out in around with around 2025 water user association. That the immediate finding is that earlier there used to be a need of say 12 irrigations. Now there is only 9 or 10 is sufficient. So around 20% reduction in water is reported. Then it also has a positive impact on production. So productivity has gone up. Actually, some around 20, 15% productivity has gone up. So something which is, because the irrigation charges, the electricity charges is going down by 20%. At the same time, if the production goes up by 20%, you can imagine the gain for a farmer and how the agriculture can become viable. So this is one aspect of technology. Other aspect of technology which has been very useful is in managing, you know, the creation of irrigation infrastructure in the sense that if you have a GIS system and you have the rainfall data, we have it for the last 50 years. We have rainfall data. So what we do, we have the satellite maps, and nowadays because of the Google Earth engine, the satellite maps are readily available. I mean, 3 4 years back it was very difficult. You have to download lot of imageries and pictures and then club them together. It was a very hassle. It was a big hassle for a project management unit. But today, in a small desktop, it's very powerful desktops and laptops are there, so you can quickly download huge chunk of data, and then you can use it to pinpoint the site for a check dam with a lot of accuracy. It gives the where height, I mean, and then you can give it to the districts, the field level functionaries who can bounce it on the field. They can fine tune the place, the point where it can be made. So this is another way you can. The third thing that we have found very useful is the debate that always happens, that when you create a irrigation infrastructure, then there is always something known as irrigation potential. So the theoretical, you know, calculated engineering command area which is possible from an infrastructure, but then it is not reached immediately. So actual command area is generally less than irrigation potential, and actual command area calculation and its measurement has been a very big challenge. Now this measurement challenge can easily be, and we have done it, can easily be addressed using NDVI calculations from the satellite imagery which you can get from the Google Earth engine. So using NDVI, we have realized that a command area with theoretical engineering command area is reached in over almost 5 years, because farmers are risk averse and they don't want to immediately start cropping or planting just because there is water. They watch for 1 or 2 or 3 years how long that water remains. Does it remain up to the summer or not? So these are a large number of pieces there. Then there is solar. Solar is a very important thing. The general critique about solar has been that if you use solar, because the marginal cost of production is nearly zero, so there is an over exploitation of groundwater. But then if you go water user association approach, then what happens is that the water user association actually implements it with a user fee charge. But that fee is coming to the general normal kitty common pool of the water user association. So that there is a behavioral change, and there is a barrier. I mean, people think that I have to pay. Of course, these payments are much less than the payments that are market driven. Market, if it is 110 rupees per hour, they may be paying to the water user association only 50 or 60 rupees. But they are gaining. But then even this small amount ensures that there is no over exploitation of the groundwater. So these are some of the technologies that we have found very useful in Indian context.
Thank you, Mr. Sir. I would like to know,
Thank you.
like, I'm sure you must be experiencing, this is first-hand experience which you are sharing with us, and I'm very interested to know how this user fee charges, how are they kind of, how it was, I'm sure it must be challenging when you kind of, implemented the system, because in overnight nothing happens. So, I'm sure there must be challenges, but what was your strategy to kind of motivate them for user fee charges, and how this entire behavioral change, and what was generally, I don't know whether it is apt for me to ask this thing or not, but what was the timeline when it brought this behavioral change, and having involvement of water user association, the beneficiaries in the current technological interventions?
See, the it is like this. When when a water user association or a farmer group charges its members, then that amount actually goes into the common pool of the water user association or the farmers group. So what happens is that the farmers think, and rightly so, that this is their money at the end of the day. So what happens that if there is a small repair that is needed, a small pipe has broken or something has happened, they can take out this money and they can use it for repair. So I mean, therefore, the inhibition about paying this charge and how to utilize it, to a large extent, I mean, this gets sorted out. The other thing is that these charges are much less than the market charges. So if you see, because there is, if you see the irrigation infrastructure, there is kind of lot of monopoly, the natural monopoly, because it has a sunken cost, and this piped infrastructure. So what happens is that if there is an area and if there is a tube well, the fellow knows that the farmer has no choice but to take water from that tube well, because the water cannot be brought from 10 kilometers. So the fellow may charge a very high price for that, and that is what happens in the across the world. The private operated tube wells, the charges are much higher than the marginal cost of production, and the the charge that water user association or farmer group will apply would be much less, much more rational, so that the farmers are immediately relieved. So if they have to, for example, pay 110 rupees per hour in market for a market for a private tuber, in this way, if they have to pay 60, so there is a gain of 50 rupees per hour. So immediately, there is a big. So it's not that farmers are not paying. Let us remember that the cost of irrigation infrastructure in the form of tubewell, etc., is prohibitive. The farmers cannot own, most of them cannot own. They are heavily dependent on the private operators and other things across the globe, and that is the pattern that has been seen. But then, if you have your own system with a group of farmers, then the level of confidence, acceptability, everything is much better. So that is how it works.
So, like you rightly mentioned about involvement of farmers, and like we already, there is participation of private players also at certain places wherein they are running this entire irrigation system. Though most of the surface irrigation system that's been run but from the government side, but there must be some PPP modes as well wherein such irrigation system or model of governance is in existence. So, coming to the policy framework. I would like to know what policy framework will enable faster use of technology in water management, sir. Because everything will be driven by the policies ultimately. So, what kind of policy framework will enable the faster use of technology in water management?
Yeah, there are a whole lot of things to be considered. Number one, as I said, that we have small land holdings in India, and therefore anything that we like to promote through policy we must remember that there is uh, this economies of scale associated. So in policy, we need to recognize the farmers group and water user association as the vehicle of vehicle to promote technology. I mean, that has to be recognized. The sooner, I mean, because otherwise there is no other way. And it is happening. I mean, the water user associations and farmers group have already been recognized. The Planning
Mm-hmm.
Commission, now Niti Aayog documents, and Government of India framework and various states have tried to implement it also. It's not a new thing that I am saying. My only submission is that this is one of the most difficult things that because what happens, water user association, it's not easy. It's sometimes what happens is that it is not a cohesive group. The village farmers are there are legacy issues, there are fragmented groups, and sometimes it becomes very difficult to put them together. For so, like in some places across the globe, there are groups which have handled and managed a particular spring for hundreds of years, or such a thing which, so there are common property resources which are handled by community, and it's not always easy to bring them together. So there is a lot of things that need to be done in that respect. So we need to bring those policy instruments which nudge them to cooperate. So groups members need to cooperate, and that is where that institutional arrangement has to be built. So that is on the institutional side. On technology side, we need to promote whole lot of technology. As I said, there is a lot of promise on tensiometer, things like tensiometer. There is a lot of promise like solar, provided you implement it with a group formula. So otherwise, then again the critique that a lot of exploitation and all that of groundwater. So that is there. Then already there is a lot of emphasis in the country on drip and sprinkler irrigation systems, which is doing quite well. And the one of the difficulties that we find, and I'm sure others also have found it, that the user group, the user department is different from the department which creates the source of water. So there is no coordination. There is a coordination failure in policy framework between, let's say, Department of Agriculture and Department of Water Resource. So water resource has created some water sources, and the command in the command area there is a need to promote a technology, help farmers and all, but then the two things sometimes are not bundled together because they are handled by two different departments. So it becomes very difficult to really get the true benefit of a technology. So the the technology may be there, but then if the right cropping pattern, and that know-how is not available with the water department. The problem is that water department is mainly consisting of engineers, whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you have to change a crop, a low water crop or like that, then that is the that specialization is with the agriculture department, and the two departments sometimes there is. So that is a
Okay.
major challenge to my mind.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So you rightly said, and we all agree that no matter what, we do have right kind of technologies in place. We do have policies also in place, but we somewhere agree that there is still a lot of departments are working in silos, and there is a need of integrated water resources management as well. And with this, I would like to thank Prabhat sir for your presence, and let me tell all our audience that like so mentioned about including other departments, other sectors in the overall policy framework when the same is being developed. Let me tell you that soon in the next session we'll also have the chair from who is also guiding us through the policy making process. So maybe we will also hear about integrated water resource management in our next session. And while we are just trying to have our third speaker with us, I will quickly take a short break. And if possibly, due to certain technical, challenges, if possibly we can still have our third speaker in place, we'll proceed with the third discussion of this particular session, where we wanted to have the policymakers talking about not only the irrigation sector, but also one of the key goals, that is 6.1, wherein we all talk about safe drinking water. So let's say possibly we can still have Mr. Shalab with us in some time. And we take a quick short break here. And thank you so much, Prabhatji, for joining us today. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank
Please
you.
stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back. Though we tried having Mr. Shalabji with us, he's there in the room, but somehow we are not able to still connect with him. So we'll try during the course of the day. If possibly we can still reach out to him, we'll definitely bring his views for all of you for the today's special conclave, where we specifically wanted to speak about safe drinking water as well. So without further ado, let's move on to our next session. There is much in store as we have two very good sessions lined up and wonderfully moderated, which will be wonderfully moderated by wonderful speakers. Stay tuned and we are moving ahead. Thank you.
Now, I would like to request Mr. Victor Shinde, Sector Coordinator, Water and Environment, National Institute of Urban Affairs, India, and all the panelists to come forward and switch on their cameras. The second panel of session includes Speaker Dr. Ramnath Sonwale, Secretary, Maharashtra Water Resources Regulatory Authority. Dr. Ramnath Sonwale professional career as an administrator spans more than 28 years and includes vast experience in urban management. He is well known for his administrative acumen and for the comfort with a PhD degree by the North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon, for his thesis on administrative communication strategies in local self-government. Our second speaker is Shri M.P. Rawal, Special Secretary, Dow Region, Narmada Water Resources, Water Supply and Kalsar Department, Government of Gujarat. Shri M.P. Rawal was recruited in Roads and Building Department after completion of his graduation in Civil Engineering from LE College, Morbi, and contributed in road sector for 13 years. He was recruited directly as Class 1 Executive Engineer in the year 1997 and achieved highest technical post, Secretary, Government of Gujarat. Looking to his 23 years expertise in water sector, government extended his service as Special Secretary, Sarastra region. He has successfully completed phase 1 and 2 of Sarashastra Narmada Avtaran irrigation project costing rupees 18,500 crore. Our third speaker is Dr. Srinivas Chokakula, Minister of Jal Shakti Research Chair, Water Conflicts and Governance, Center of Policy Research. Sri Srinivas Chokakula is the Ministry of Jal Shakti Research Chair, Water, Conflicts and Governments at CPR, where he leads the Transboundary Rivers, Ecologies and Development Studies program. He plays a crucial role in the MOJS by engaging closely with the relevant government agencies and offering consultations on various water policy and institutional issues. Mr. Victor Shinde will be the moderator for the second panel. Mr. Victor R. Shinde is the Sector Coordinator for Water and Environment at the National Institute of Urban Affairs. He has over 17 years of experience in diverse domains such as urban environment management, integrated water resources management, water security enhancement, climate change adaptation in water sector, flood risk assessment, and M&E frameworks for water and environmental sector. A recipient of several awards and scholarships, he has 30 plus publications as journal articles, book chapters, conference papers, and knowledge products. Over to you, Mr. Victor.
Thank you very much, MC. For that wonderful introduction of yours. While you were reading out my introduction, I was honestly a little embarrassed because we have such an esteemed panel here that whatever little achievements I have, they kind of pale in comparison to what you all have here. So for me, it's a personal honor, to be on this panel moderating you. I know some of you, Ramnath sir, of course, we've met before. Srinivas sir, we have interacted. You probably don't remember during the preparation of the water policy, the discussions that we had, right? So, and then Rahul sir, it's a great pleasure to meet you now, at this occasion. Right? So thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this panel. And for the benefit of the participants, I'd just like to take a moment here, to introduce my organization, which is the National Institute of Urban Affairs, which the MC also pointed out too. And then tell you a little bit about the kind of work that we are doing, especially in the water sector. NIUA, the National Institute of Urban Affairs, is the think tank, or is widely regarded as the think tank of India's Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, right? And then we've been kind of quite closely associated with some of the popular urban missions that the ministry has launched. This includes, of course, the Amrut, the Smart Cities mission, so on and so forth, right? So over the last few years or so, our focus has been quite a bit on water, right? And I think there are very good reasons for that. The Niti Aayog report in, I think, 2018. Well, for whatever reasons, there has been some contention about it. But the point is clear that I think water is becoming more and more of a priority, a concern in our Indian cities. And the kind of work that we are now doing, because our work, our mandate is essentially urban centric, right? So we work very closely with the cities, trying to help them move up the development ladder, in a very resource sensitive, and a sustainable fashion, right? And we've been realizing that water is not really the job of one ministry, although we have a dedicated ministry, the Ministry of Jal Shakti, for that. But then it's kind of cross-cutting. It is every ministry's responsibility, and to an extent, it interfaces quite a few ministries. And it is in that regard that we have recently started our association with the Ministry of Jal Shakti, specifically through the National Mission for Clean Ganga. And we've been doing some work, and one of the most perhaps pertinent works in this context is we are promulgating, in a sense of river sensitive or water sensitive development, in our cities, right? There was a very interesting framework that we produced, which was launched by the Minister of Jal Shakti sometime last year. And then the idea is to help cities, adopt that river sensitive development and water sensitive development practices, right? So essentially, this is a great opportunity. I think this is a very exciting time for water in India, because the kind of policies, the kind of initiatives that are being taken, are perhaps unprecedented. And going forward, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm, and which is not only evident in the government ministries, but also through practitioners and senior administrators, that we have today. I think one of the things about water security is that it is quite a bit multi-perspective. It has to be looked at from different perspectives, and it is in that regard, I think, we have a very unique and a very interesting panel here today, right? So we have a person who is actually involved in the policy making as part of the policy, as the national water policy that we preparing. We have a very senior administrator who's worked with smart cities, who kind of knows the grill in and out. And then we also have a very technical person, in terms of an engineer. So it's a very interesting mix of panel, and I'm so thrilled and I'm so happy to be part of this panel and moderating this. I had your introductions here, but I think the MC has already introduced you. So let me straight away move into this round of discussions, right? All right. So my first question is for Dr. Ramnath sir, Sunavne. And this question actually stems, or it is kind of associated with your tenure as the CEO of the Smart City SPV in Nagpur, right? At NIUA, we have also been quite closely engaged with the different smart cities, as they have been kind of progressing up, taking up different activities. And Nagpur is one city that has really done very well with water, and I think the incredible use of wastewater, wastewater reuse. There are slum settlements that have been provided with water, and I'm sure it's all under your leadership that the city has been able to achieve that, right? So you have this vast experience of 28 years, right? So I'd like to know from you, how has that approach towards water management, especially in the urban context, evolved over the years, right? and more importantly, are we on the right track when it comes to urban water management? And if not, what are the kind of course corrections that are required? Over to you, sir. Sir, you will have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, now you're audible.
Yeah. Hi, good morning, Victor. Nice meeting you, and good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to actually interact with various experts in this field. Uh, you see, when we talk about water, the rain god has been somewhat partial. Uh, some states in India, they are water surplus. Some states in India, they are water stressed. Same is the case in Maharashtra. Some districts are water stressed. Some districts have adequate water. You have asked me a city specific question. It will be injustice to say that I implemented that scheme 24/7 in Nagpur. In fact, the implementation started way back in 2008 2009. Nagpur Municipal Corporation was the first to implement 24/7 water supply scheme. That project is not yet completed, but it was the first of its kind. A municipal corporation with a private player has undertaken that project, and the objective of that project was, number one, 100% coverage of the city. Nagpur city, it's a 227 square kilometer area, and the population is near about 30 lakh. But still, as on today, 20% area is not served with a tap water. It is served with either tankers, or the citizens have their own wells, tube wells, or some other sources. But the objective of this project, conceived way back in 2009 2010, was to cover 100% city. And second important objective was to provide 24/7 water supply even to the slums. And the project has been implemented quite successfully, and maybe over a period of next 1 or 2 years, it will be implemented in entire city. So that was first experience wherein a private player, OCW, was helping Nagpur Municipal Corporation to implement that project. You see, for Nagpur, the availability of water was one issue, but fortunately, Nagpur city has adequate quantity of water available. The city now gets near about 650 mld of water per day. So whatever raw water that is required, it is available. The important issue was actually to avoid the transmission losses of that raw water. So Nagpur city under JNNURM mission implemented one project wherein right from the source, raw water source, to the treatment plant, a piped a project was implemented wherein instead of river bed, uh, pipe system was implemented, which actually prevented the losses. And then another important aspect, another important component of that project was to replace the old network in the old city, and that was quite challenging. Replacing the old network when uh, the network was quite old. It was laid 40, 50 years ago, and replacing that network was the most important issue. And third important and challenging aspect was installation of meters to measure the quantity supplied. You see, when we talk about water supply, there are two, three important things. So, number one, as per service level benchmarks, we should supply at least 140 LCD to each citizen. That is already achieved in Nagpur. Nagpur city supplies more than 140 LPCD. If we just calculate the population and the quantity of water supplied per day, it is in fact much more than that. So installation of meters was another challenge. Uh, see, while implementing 24 by 7 water supply scheme, the PPP player has successfully installed meters. And third was the quality of water. Fortunately, the quality of water in Nagpur is very good. It is properly treated and it is supplied. The challenges that Nagpur Municipal Corporation has faced, the area was quite vast, 227 square kilometers. Population is, you see, 30 lakhs. The quantity of water supply is much more than what we require. But initially, when we started implementing that scheme, the NRW was more than 53%. And you see, the basic aim is to reduce the NRW, non-revenue water. So now Nagpur Municipal has reached 40%. And as per service level benchmarks, we have to achieve less than 20%. It is between 15 to 20%. So that is still a challenge. Another issue is, you see, when we supply water to the city, 80% of it is generated as now the concept of wastewater. Now we have used another term, reused water. So that wastewater, or what we call used water, has to be treated as per the mandate, and at least 30% of it has to be reused within the city. If we want to ensure judicious and equitable use of water, then we have to use the wastewater, we have to treat the wastewater and reuse it. Again, in that field also, Nagpur Municipal Corporation was the first one to start with 130 MLD capacity wastewater treatment plant, and that 130 MLD water was supplied to Mahajanko Corporation, that thermal power plant, for cooling purpose. And Nagpur Municipal Corporation earns a royalty about 16 crores a year from that wastewater. Now Nagpur Municipal Corporation has augmented that, and another 200 mld of wastewater or used water is being treated, and Nagpur Municipal Corporation is in the process to sign the agreement with, again, the Mauda power plant, thermal power plant. Fortunately, Government of India has come out with a mandate wherein if there are thermal power plants within the radius of 50 kilometers, then they have to use the treated wastewater. And accordingly, Nagpur Municipal Corporation will be in a position to supply near about 330 MLD of wastewater to various thermal power plants and generate revenue. That is also a project implemented with a private partner. So that PPP model has been very successfully implemented in Nagpur. The biggest challenge is, again, I will say, the replacement of old water distribution network to avoid losses. Another challenge is to avoid theft of water. And third biggest challenge is 100% coverage, to ensure 100% coverage so that all citizens, including slum dwellers, get adequate quantity of water. So equitable distribution in the city is the major challenge. Same is the case with the rest of the cities in Maharashtra, or even in the nation, even in the entire country. Yeah, while working as a city manager, I have realized that equitable distribution, achieving equitable distribution of water is the biggest challenge. Even if we have adequate quantity of water available, distribution is a biggest headache for all city managers. And scarcity during summer is another challenge that we have to face. For example, city like Latur in Maharashtra had to face water scarcity, and water was supplied through tanker from another city. So these are the issues in water supply management. Uh, when we talk about SDG 6, water and sanitation, then these are the challenges that we face.
Thank you very much, sir. I think this is great information that you provided us with. It was very interesting to learn, some of the notable achievements that Kanpur did over a period of time, right? The point that you made about the inequitable distribution of water supply, I
Yeah.
think that's a rampant problem, right? Even in Delhi, my organization, in fact, I'm also part of the team that is preparing the next master plan for Delhi, and we've studied the water situation in Delhi very thoroughly, and it was quite evident. There's a gross disparity in
Yeah.
supply, right? Areas like
Right.
NDMC or cantonment, you have almost 500 liters per capita per day. But if you go down to
Yes.
Mehroli, towards the other side, it's only 29.
Right.
So that's the kind of gross disparity. Right? So thank you very much, sir. And I'll come back to you again, for the second round of questions. But for now,
Yeah.
let me just move on to Raval, sir. Raval, sir, thank you again for joining us. I perhaps forgot to mention that when we were introducing you, that he's also the special secretary, right? So it's a great honor for us that you are here today, right? So now, Rahul, so my question to you is actually related to a very it's related to a philosophy that has been propagated for a long time in India, right? And perhaps you're the best person to kind of answer that. This is that integrated water resources management, right? Now that took off somewhere in 1990s, globally. In India also, even the last water policy was actually kind of focusing quite a bit on it. There are certain countries like Thailand or Indonesia, who have done reasonably well with IWRM, right? I personally know Thailand because I was working there before coming to NIUA. So Thailand has 25 river basins. Each of the river basins has an RBO, an river basin organization. They have water user associations. Water pricing is very dynamic. So there are countries that have done relatively well, on IWRM. But somehow the situation in India has not really been, all that promising, right? So I'd just like to know from you, what could be the reasons why IWRM is not really having that intended effect, that we had envisaged, okay? And what could be, the way forward? How do we course correct and how do we go ahead, with this regard?
Good morning, Mr. Victor Sinde, and the other speakers who are the stalwarts present here with me during this session. So I will first provide you the details in Gujarat also, which is a part of our nation, and we have also facing the similar issue in the 1990s, and because of the drought and flood and everything, we have to face so many problems. Even in 2000, our average annual rainfall availability is 800 millimeter, which is around 67% of the national average. And our per capita availability is only 920 cubic meter per capita, against the national average of 1720. So it is only 53.5% available. Because of these issues, we have to face tremendous problems in water management. But from 2000 onwards, we have started thinking we have to do something for this. So we have adopted a integrated approach for our state, which can be utilized by the nation also, and other district, other area have also visited Gujarat for this purpose, and they have studied our model also. So what we have done, we have done this integrated water management through water conservation, through micro irrigation, through participatory irrigation management, through interlinking of rivers, intra-basin transfer of water, strengthening of our existing canal systems, salinity ingress prevention in coastal belt, and reuse of treated water is the last. We have utilized it. So we have taken all these steps one by one. From 2000 onwards, we have started water conservation. And if I will give you the figures, we have completed 871,000 structures, water conservation structures in Gujarat, in which 186,000 check dams. It is done by various departments, not only water resources department. We have constructed 323,000 farm ponds and one ponds, forest ponds. We have constructed bori bunds also, 361,000. So with the help of these water conservations, we have each drop of water we have saved. First thing. Another thing, we have done the participatory irrigation management in our irrigation. We have 19 major irrigation schemes. We have around 90 medium irrigation schemes and more than 900 minor irrigation schemes. So we have adopted the participatory irrigation management approach in these schemes. So around 6 lakhs hectare has been covered so far under participatory irrigation management in our existing system, as well as Sardar Sarovar Narmada Nigam has adopted the same approach, and around 6 lakhs hectares they have covered under participatory irrigation management. Another thing, we have strengthened our canal systems to save water, to leakages, to reduce the leakages through our existing canal system. With the help of that, we have provided the water to the end users, which are at the we are not getting the sufficient share of equitable water, which is their right. So with the help of the improvement of our systems, we have provided water to them. So similar, and in case of micro irrigation, we are number one in the entire nations. We have covered around 19.6 lakhs hectare area under micro irrigation, which is around 20% of our net irrigation. Around 95 lakhs we are irrigated annually. So around 20% area we have covered under micro irrigation. So these are the different decisions we have taken as per the from stage and onwards, from 2000 onwards. And you will be surprised that because of all these reasons, the safe blocks, means in terms of groundwater improvement, only 103 in 1997. It is only 103. It has been rose to now 194 in 2017. So because of the various interventions we have done through various measures which I have stated, we have come out of the groundwater problems which we are facing since last from 1990 onwards. And at one stage we have to run trains for providing water to Rajkot city and in around area, Gondal area, and now onwards we are providing water to them through Saurashtra Narmada Uttara Irrigation Yojana, and we are filling the dams of 115 reservoirs in Saurashtra belt. We are filling 9 reservoirs in North Gujarat regions. So with the help of intra-basin transfer of water, where the water is surplus available in one region and where the one region is deficient, so we have transporting water from one region to another region, and with the help of that intra-basin transfer of water, we have solved the problems of drought area, where the overexploited area as well as the drought-prone area we have issued. Similar thing we are going for the Kutch region also, which is also a drought-prone area. So by multiple actions, multi-pronged approach, we have solved the issue of Gujarat. So similar, we have taken this example from Thailand, we have taken the examples of Indonesia. In Thailand also, as you have rightly told, they have 25 river basins, they have 254 sub-basins, but they have obtained success because of in 1995, they have made an agreement where in which they have lower Mekong river basins they have taken up. And in lower Mekong river basins, they have covered 4 nations, Cambodia, Laos DPR, Thailand and Vietnam. With the help of this Mekong River Commission constitution by Thailand, they have utilized the water resources they have, and they have managed it in a proper way. So this is an example for the other nations also, they can also do. Similar things we have done in our nation also. If you have heard the 22nd March, our Honorable Prime Minister speech, they have given congratulations to Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh as well as Chief Minister of UP for to link Ken Betwa link proposal which is finalized. So similar thing, positive approach is necessary for integrated water management in our nation.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rahul sir. I think while listening to you, I was just reminded of the previous session where I was also listening to, and there was a lot of talk about improvement in the water use efficiency in the agriculture sector. Because 90% of our water is actually used for agriculture, and then it's very in fact all the things that you said are so relevant. So relevant to the water conservation, the participatory irrigation management and stuff. So it's very nice to learn about these things. So thank you so much, Raval sir. I'll come back to you again for the second round of questions.
Okay.
Let me now move on to Dr. Srinivas. So again, it's a pleasure again to interact with you here. And you are part of the committee that is drafting the next water policy for our country, right? And as part of that whole procedure, it's a very nice thing that you're doing, that you're having meetings with different stakeholders. And I was part of one of that meeting with my director, and it was a very progressive discussion that ensued. Trying to ascertain, what are the areas that the policy needs to target, right? So now, whenever an endeavor of this sort is undertaken, there's always a little bit of a challenge, to kind of balance that ambition, the optimism with ground reality, right? Like I said, I'm working in Delhi as part of the master plan. One of the things that we want to really target is 100% wastewater reuse, right? It looks very nice on the policy, but we know practically it is not possible. It's just not feasible for us to do that, right? And I'm sure there are multiple such things at a national level, that you must have come across. So I just want your insights on, how was the approach that you're taking, to kind of have that optimal balance between ambition and ground reality, please.
Right. Thank you, Victor. I do remember our interaction during with the NIEA during that drafting committee consultations process. But at the outset, let me just congratulate you and the Water Digest for putting this very impressive conclave. And it's a real pleasure as well as privilege to be part of this distinguished panel. Just to address your question, I think I was in fact actually logged in right from the beginning and then listening quite with a lot of interest and curiosity. And as you can, look at it right from Mr. Ashok Kumar, Mr. Mishra, and then, Mr. Pankaj Kumar at the MOAJs, and also the other speakers who mentioned about various issues about improving, in fact, Ashok Kumar, who said that improving, agricultural use of water is the most, probably the low-hanging fruit. And similarly, the kind of technological alternatives that the state secretary that talked about from West Bengal, and also the other panelists here. If you look at most of these functions, I mean, that is where, in fact, the question that you mentioned about what are the kind of desirable outcomes that we are looking at vis-a-vis the practical challenges in achieving them comes to picture. So if you look at the entire range of issues that the speakers talked about and the conclave has engaged with, you will find that most of them are in the state's domain. And as someone at the national water policy, drafting the national water policy, would face this question, very simple question, that if these are all to be done by the states, how can the center work with states to ensure that these desirable outcomes are achieved? That is the biggest challenge, if you ask me personally. So it's not exactly what the water policy has actually entirely, the drafting committee has looked at, but at least what I have argued, I can actually share it with you, is that this federal ecosystem of how center and states can work. And also, as Mr. Raval mentioned about this interlinking and other kind of projects where states can work with each other, how can you make it really possible? I mean, obviously, as you know, the union has to work with the states. Now, if you look at it, and the biggest gap that you see is that, and as many of you have noted, water is a state subject, and that's precisely the reason why there is dominant executive power that the states enjoy here. And the kind of role that is, at least under the constitutional scheme, is that it is subject to entry 56 under the union list, which is about interstate rivers and regulation and development. Now, if you look at it, what so far historically what has been done using that provision of union's powers, you will see that what we have done is as a compliance to entry 56 provisions is to come out with a legislation called River Boards Act 1956. putting aside the exceptional nature of the interstate river water disputes resolution, but that is a function that the union is engaged, but of course very remotely, because it is basically essentially about constituting tribunals for disputes resolution. And other than that, it's only the River Boards Act 1956, and not many people are aware of it. You know that there are plenty of river boards. In fact, not plenty. There are about 11. About, I say, is because they're not always called boards, but they are interstate institutions. 11 interstate institutions in the country, and not many people notice it that none of these institutions were created using the River Boards Act 1956. In fact, it has been in disuse since it was it was brought in. So that essentially means that under the constitutional function that is given to the union, there's very little that is done, because whatever that has been done is dysfunctional in that sense, even though the union has been active in creating these interstate institutions. But the fact remains that formally that legal instrument has remained ineffective. And the other possibility of state, center working with states is very often is about the financial resources allocation and finances, putting aside the financial commission allocations, but very often it is the financial leverage that is often looked at as a possible ways of working with states. But historically, if you look at it, the numbers, I mean, though the Indian state transformation is known as the one which moved from strong center weak states to weak center and strong states, but you have now a data. If you look at it, if you look at the budgetary allocations and expenditures historically, center has actually reduced its allocations. I mean, the budgetary expenditure in water sector is significantly high from the states as compared to that of the center. In fact, that is an opportunity when it comes to Jal Jeevan Mission's significant allocations. You see that a significant rise, a spike compared to the historical reduction of the center's allocations to water sector. So effectively, there is very little leverage that center can have to work with states in pursuing some of those goals that we're talking about. That is the biggest challenge that we're talking about now. The practical challenge is the ability of the center to work with states to pursue all those sustainability goals that we're looking at in water sector. Now, if this is the situation, what is the kind of future that we are looking at? I mean, obviously the spike through the Jal Jeevan Mission kind of centrally sponsored schemes is definitely encouraging, and then that probably would give enough leverage, if not enough leverage, at least some leverage for the center to work with states in anchoring their direction towards in certain way. But the fact remains that we need to look at federal water governance, which includes center-state relations as well as interstate relations, as the future focus, in order to make sure that the center and states can work towards not just pursuing developmental goals, but also long-term security goals. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the trends, it's not just that it is not happening in that direction. If you look at the trends, what is the major flagship program of the center, which is clearly realizing that this is where the center has to target, is that one of the flagship programs of the center is river rejuvenation. Obviously, it is not something that states can just on their own can do it, particularly over the interstate rivers. So if you look at the range of developmental programs and sustainable, pursuing sustainable development by the center, you would see the whole range of programs and projects that are moving into the realm of interstate governance. So if you take river rejuvenation or inland navigation, significant steps have been taken in the past decade or so. Inland navigation or interbasin transfer, much contested, but as there is certain progress in certain aspects, at least when the projects are justified, like they I mean, as Mr. Rawal has mentioned recently, the other day on the Water Day, the Can-Betwa link has been, the MOA for Can-Betwa link has been signed between Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. So if you take this whole range of projects, river rejuvenation, inland navigation, interbasin transfer, even a significant shift towards integrated water resources management that you're talking about, or addressing the problem that Dr. Sonavane has mentioned about, is equitable distribution across the states. This requires a strong and resilient federal governance, which includes robust mechanisms for the center to work with states, as well as the states to work with among themselves towards these larger goals. So it is time, given the fact that both there are demands for that, as well as given that there is a constitutional scheme that requires that center has to work with states towards these longer term security goals as well as developmental goals. I think it is important that the future has to focus on federal water governance and ways of improving it across the whole range of instruments, not just legal or financial leverage, but also policy, politics, and practices. So I think that is something that I have at least argued quite strongly before the committee, to keep it, to give special focus to it, and bring some important measures to strengthen these relationships, between center state as well as interstate, as well as the structural mechanisms for these to work with. So I would just leave it at that point, and I think I don't want to take more time, but we can come to the second round if you'd like, if you wish to.
Sure. Thank you so much, Srinivas sir. I think it is very important, for you, and it is very correct of you to actually point out that connect between the center and the state. That interaction, which is so crucial for water management, in India. Great. So thank you so much, sir. I just received a message from the organizers that we need to kind of wind up by 12:15. So we have 5 minutes. So it might not be possible for us to take the originally planned questions that we had. But I just want one question, which I would like all three of you to kind of take a stab at it, and very briefly, if you will, please. And this is regarding the the new talk in town, the Jal Jeevan Urban, that was recently launched by the finance minister in February, right? Now this is a new mission. Over the next 5 years, I think a lot of progress or a lot of activities will be done in the cities. And I am a little partial to cities given my kind of inclination or my association with them, right? So I'd just like to have your quick take, and in terms of this mission, in order for this mission to kind of achieve the objectives that it has set out to, and this is not only about connecting households to water, water supply to households, right? It's achieving the overall urban water security systems approach, right? So in your opinion, very quickly, what do cities need to do, what needs to be done, in order to ensure that this mission stays on track? So very quickly, maybe we'll start with you, Ramnath sir, in the same order. Perhaps 30 to 40 seconds, if you will, please.
You see, fortunately, in Maharashtra, every city has a separate budget for water. But even then, adequate provisions in budgets are not made. The figures quoted in the budget and the actual expenditure incurred on water management, water supply scheme management, there is a huge gap. So the central government, the central government, the state governments, and the local governments, all three will have to work together, and citizens will also have to share the cost. If you say water pricing is the biggest issue, and people want water absolutely free of cost, and I personally believe the the tariff that is decided by various local urban local bodies is really irrational. It is not properly decided. Therefore, so 100% metering, and one who uses more water should pay more, uh, and nothing should be provided free of cost. Maybe yes, for the people below poverty line, you can think of some sort of subsidy. But if at all we have to invest adequate funds to ensure the success of Jal Jeevan mission, then the central government, the state government, and urban local bodies will have to provide adequate funds, and the citizens will also have to be ready to pay the actual cost. If at least, if not profit, the water supply schemes should be run on no profit, no loss basis.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rana sir. Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about pricing, you talked about full cost recovery, and you also talked about citizen engagement. So which is very important, right? I'll move on to Rawal sir. Now, sir, so your views on this, please.
Fortunately, in Gujarat, we have covered 82% households under Nal Se Jal program. And though the target has been given to complete all state to complete before 2024, but we have taken the challenge to complete before December 2022 in Gujarat, and we have provided sufficient fund for that also. Another thing, for success of this model, we have constituted one organization, WASMO, Water and Sanitation Organization, which provides participatory arrangements in village level. WASMO has obtained success in villages because of their approach for the functioning of this organization at local level, and people have also actively taken part in it. And because of that, if you have read about the latest issue of one big important magazines, they have shown the photographs of our Wasmo picture in their magazine, and it has been published by them also in I think India Today. So with the help of participatory approach, we can get success in the Nal Se Jal program. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rahul sir. So it's quite clear that scale up the ambition. I think that's the Gujarat story. Like step up the ambition.
Yes.
With citizen support. Fantastic, right? Srinivas sir, we'll now move on to you for your views, please.
Right, thank you. I think in addition to what has been said by the panelists, which are quite relevant, I think, as I did say, as the Jal Jeevan Mission is an opportunity because of the spike, the kind of spike that we have from the center's contribution. And it is also extremely important for the fact that it focuses on a very important goal, particularly the SDG 6 that you're talking about. And also, not somewhat, I think the kind of emphasis that this particular program puts on with the kind of allocations that we see, and also the kind of, if not nudge, at least the push that is from by the union to the states, because it is a centrally sponsored scheme and it is going to be 60-40 expenditure allocation. Now it is extremely that would bring in a very important focus on this very important goal. Now, having said that, I mean, it should not, one needs to also recognize that it is, after all, a time-bound, centrally sponsored scheme.
Yeah.
And there would be a point when this funding would not be available. Once the systems are set in place, it obviously, given the very fundamental rationale of federalism, as well as the kind of relative advantage of various scale of governments at the scale, it requires that the local institutions and the subnational governments to take over and continue and make sure that there are enduring outcomes from the mission. And that is the crux of the challenge that we need to be really prepared for. And that requires, it's not just about institutionalization of this very program itself, institutionalization of the idea of drinking water security, but also ensuring that the local bodies and the subnational institutions, the institutions that are there, are adequately strengthened to make sure that there is the program's objectives in the program is sustained over time, and the drinking water security in its true sense is achieved. And that is the biggest challenge that we face. I mean, if you look at other kind of centrally sponsored schemes like Prime Minister Gram Sadak Yojana, and that is what actually made those kind of programs celebrate, is because the states have appreciated, at least some states, if not all the states, and then responded with certain kind of institutionalization and also strengthening of the local institutions. And that's what needs to be the focus in the future for Jal Jeevan Mission, both urban as well as rural.
Yeah. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Dr. Srinivas. Yeah, absolutely. I think you emphasized on a very important that there has to be local ownership. That capacities within the local governments need to be enhanced in order to take forward the activities. The outputs need to be sustained over a period of time. Right. Thank you so much, Srinivas sir. And let me now take this opportunity to thank all of you once again, Ramnath sir, Rahul sir, Srinivas sir. It was an absolute pleasure interacting with all of you. I think the insights that you shared on different aspects, plus some practical implications and practical stories, this really brought a lot of it made this discussion very lively, and it also made it very diverse, right? I'm sure the participants who are listening to this would have gained a lot from it. And I hope that I would have an opportunity to interact with you, all of you, hopefully in person once this COVID thing gets over, okay, sometime very soon, right? So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's an excellent moderation that you've done, and it was a real pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Okay. So for the benefit of the participants, we are now going to take a very short break. And then we will continue with the third session, for today, which is going to be the final session for today, right? So thank you everybody once again. Bye-bye.
Yeah, in the platform.
Now, I would like to request Ms. Neha Midha, National Program Officer, Natural Sciences, UNESCO, and all the panelists to come forward and switch on their cameras. The third panel of session includes Professor Dr. Shama V. Ramani, Professorial Fellow, UNU Merit, Maastricht. Professor Dr. Shama V. Ramani is a professor at the School of Governance, United Nations University, whose research focuses on the relationships between technology, innovation, and their governance for inclusive development. She won the Women of the Earth Award in 2008 from the Institut de France and Yves Rocher Foundation and was recognized as one of the 100 Women Achievers of India by the Indian Ministry of Women and Child Development in 2016. Our second speaker is Mr. Divyang Waghela, Head Tata Water Mission. Mr. Divyang is the head Tata Water Mission, a WASH initiative of Tata Trusts. With a rich experience in the non-profit sector, he is the director of various non-profit organizations with a keen interest in water security, with a focus on climate change and organizational development through innovative sustainable models. Our third speaker is Mr. Vinod Kumar N., Director Trade and Investment, Austrade India. With more than 13 years of experience and consultation, Mr. Vinod leads the Water Resource Management Initiative for South Asia at Australia. He has worked in multiple industries, including water resource management and renewable energy, and is a certified energy manager of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Government of India, and an Indian Green Building Council lead accredited professional. Ms. Neha Medha will be the moderator for the third panel. Neha Medha is environmental professional, presently working as program officer with the UNESCO New Delhi office for its natural sciences program. She provides technical expertise for UNESCO Intergovernmental Hydrological Program, Man and Biosphere Program, and Science Policy and Capacity Building. She has 10 years of experience in natural resource management, sustainability, water resource management, and wildlife conservation. She is PhD in Natural Resource Management from Wildlife Institute of India and postgraduate graduate Environment Management from Forest Research Institute, India. Over to you, Ms. Neha.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I would like to welcome the esteemed panel for this last session. We already had two thought-provoking sessions before this session, and this is going to be the last session. And in this session, we are going to focus on other management instrument which are being used for a better, efficient water planning management. So the other management instrument we are going to focus on is role of data and the role of the citizens in informed water planning. And we are going to also hear example from Australia on their experience on efficient water planning management. So my first question is to Mr. Divyang Wonghela. So Divyang Wonghela, the issue of uneven distribution of drinking water. So, where do citizens stand on initiating a dialogue on this issue? So, I would like to hear from you, from your experience. Over to you.
Sorry, can you just repeat your question because I've just lost the
Yes,
connection? Sorry.
yes, yes. So, I was asking that there is a issue of uneven distribution of drinking water. So, according to your experience, where do citizens stand on initiating a dialogue on this?
Okay. Thanks for this opportunity. I think when we talk about the specifically, I talk about the urban water supply. Rural, we know that urban-rural disparity is very high. But if you look at even the urban water sector, I think there are two kind of citizens. I would say one is the users, which I think currently not being underserved, currently are quite marginalized in terms of the availability of a
Uh,
our urban
mm,
landscape. That actually,
Mr.
sorry, I
Divyang,
lost
there is,
again. But
I think,
so I
yeah,
just would like to say that.
hmm,
Can
maybe
you
if
hear
you
me?
turn off your camera, uh, your voice is breaking. Maybe if you turn off your camera, we will be able to hear you better because
Okay, can you hear me now? Is it clear?
yes, it's better.
Okay, thank you. And sorry for this technical glitch. But
No problem.
yeah, I think if you look at the citizens' role in urban space, specifically, I look at it two different categories of citizens. One is obviously the community who are underserved in terms of the water availability. And second, which are like, I would say, more privileged in terms of having enough water available through a pipe water supply system. And both have a very critical role to play in terms of, I think, the when I talk about the citizens as a user, I think we need to look at how we optimize our user in terms of the water wastage, because I think in India the infrastructure of the water reuse is substantially low. I think in how we are hardly use more than not more than 2% of the water which is recycled and reused for the multiple purpose. So as a user, I think there is a need to look at the optimized water usage part, and at the same time, I think we need to also look at in terms of how those water can be reused. So that's a one part of the citizens' role which I see in terms of the optimization of the usage. We have seen the experiences of the South Africa, where I think if you look at last 30 years, the water supply and water consumption has gone down substantially, like almost 40% as water consumption has gone down because of the availability challenges in the region. Second, I think is important player, which are I think the most underserved communities, because larger urbanization is happening. More, I would say, the people are migrating to urban space. but without getting any kind of improved facilities. So in urban areas, the slum, specifically the slum communities, have been always not getting the right kind of services. And I think that's the challenge in terms of how, as a citizens, as a part of the ecosystem, we provide the better water services to them. So I think they also they are into a very, I would say, marginalized situation because of the two areas. One is the quantity part, and second is the quality. I think quality is very critical in terms of availability of water. There is very little knowledge about the water quality aspects. Even if the people and citizens, I think they don't know about which kind of quality they use, and because of that, I think the use of the purification system has been very high. Who can afford it? So I see the both awareness in terms of the water quality part among the citizens is also very critical factor. Unless and until there is a demand in terms of the quality water, I think the supply side management would be difficult, or the pressure would not be there on the supply management or utility services to provide the water quality management. I think the first element which I see how the water quality related awareness and education can be made uh, widespread across the users, so they understand the quality of water and which kind of a quality they are using, and accordingly they can demand a better quality water to the service provider. So that way I think I see the quantity and quality perspective, citizens play a very critical role, more as a responsibility part in terms of consuming less water or optimize the resource management. And second is how they can actually be aware about the quality aspects and put pressure on the government or put pressure on the service delivery mechanism to provide a better quality services.
Thank you, Mr. Divyang, for sharing that. And I completely agree with you that the awareness is really required. And until and unless citizens are aware, they will not be able to put pressure on the government for better, efficient supply of quality of water. So now I would like to move to Dr. Sharma, and I would like to hear your perspective on role of data and its management in implementation of water policy. Dr. Sharma.
Um, First of all, Ms. Neha and esteemed panelists and the organizers of the Water Conclave, a very hearty thanks to all of you. Neha, you please stop me when you think it's necessary, but my discourse is going to be built around 5 key points, some of which I have just taken down now, listening to the previous session also. The first is that now governance is set in a managerial mode, which means that governments have to manage a country and achieve certain targets exactly like a firm. So it helps actually to introduce some managerial terms. The most simple is prioritization. Okay, the a simple thing that even self-help books tell all individuals is that you have to categorize your objectives between important and urgent, important but not urgent, not urgent, not important, a very simple matrix. The first thing that comes to my mind is that India, like many other developing countries, all my statements are going to be with respect to many countries because I see it as a universal problem. For all the water stressed countries, it seems to be that water security is an important problem, but it is not regarded as urgent because enough action is not being taken. So, my first point that I would like to put across is that water is now taken as an important problem. Niti Aayog is saying that we are in the worst water crisis. But when you see the follow up action, it doesn't seem to be taken as an urgent problem. So ask for more action. Okay. Now, the second thing is more is not necessarily better. Okay. So we seem to be, sort of moving in multiple directions. And you see, maybe a period of reflection needs to be there, because urgent action doesn't mean moving in all directions. I can give many examples of this. The third point I want to make is that we are living in a digitalized world. It's very different today than it was 20 years back or 30 years back when I first started my career. And so the thing is, it is a new opportunity and a low hanging fruit for many of the problems that you have mentioned, that other panelists has mentioned, is better data management. Okay, I can go into that. The fourth point I want to make is that we need to emphasize that it is a shared responsibility, and it is impossible for any state to do everything on its own. Okay, this was a point reiterated by one of the, I think, the moderator of the previous session also, that we have to recognize that it's a shared responsibility. And my fifth point is, especially I would like to hear the panelists, other panelists also, accountability works both ways. You know, we cannot hold the government accountable for everything. It's like saying, why is God being so unfair to me? Okay, we have to also understand God helps those who help themselves, you know, as the saying goes. So accountability works in both ways. So these are the 5 major points I want to bring across. If you want, I will go into the third point on data management, but let me know, what should I do?
Briefly, if you can share the role of the data, it would be great. Yeah, your third point.
So the thing is, I want to say that there was an economist long time back who's dead now. His name is Hirschman. Okay. And, you know, he was working in the World Bank. I'm going to tell it as a narrative because that's when people will remember the most. I come from JNU, so anybody works in the World Bank is regarded as an enemy. Okay. Though many of my colleagues from JNU are now in the World Bank. So anyway, so the thing is, this Hirschman actually was a friend of the developing world. So in a later age, when I got out of my ideological straitjacket and was able to open my mind to different kinds of knowledge, there were some points which struck me again and again. He said that developing countries, and in India, he loved India, especially he loved India. He said they are below their possibilities because of lack of the 2 strategic problems of resolving them. One is cooperation, other is coordination. Okay, so he said that if they can solve these kinds of strategic problems, then they will go very far, because there is so much talent, so much potential, so much goodwill. Okay, so I feel that it is true today also. So please take my criticisms with the fact that this is actually an opportunity for doing better. So, but data management is a low hanging fruit. What is data management? First, we have to see data generation. Okay, what kind of data do we want to generate? For that, we need to see what are the indicators. You see, there are a lot of strange indicators that we do not understand. I will go into more examples in the next round. Data generation, data indicators. Do people understand what data they are generating? Okay, that is the first question. The second thing is data organization, because now we have a multiplicity of organizations. Okay, we have spread over geographical space, and then we have multiple layers, and to that we now have a supranational layer, which is the SDG 6, the United Nations SDG 6. Now what I am finding is that there is a lack of coherence, and this is not only in water, this is in all the national missions, all our national missions. There is a need for data streamlining. Then you see, one of the important needs of water data, because of this digitalization, Governments are feeling enormous pressure to share real time data with the public because they feel it adds to their legitimacy. You see, if you don't have a website, what are you? You don't have legitimacy. If you don't tweet, you are not legitimate in the internet space. Now, here again, when you look at any of the data disclosures, okay, you find that it is total chaos. It's very difficult to understand the data being disclosed by the ministerial websites. And when you ask any of the contact numbers, you ask them for data, you never get an answer. I have tried it. Okay, so the data disclosure, because before, in the olden days, we had our two elements that we all economists studied, was the economic survey and the budget statement. This time, I think last time the lady was my colleague at JNU again. She was my classmate. She fainted from talking about the budget so much, right? So it shows that the extent to which, you see, these documents have become too complex, so is more necessarily better. Okay, data disclosure. And then data exploitation. Here there is where there is a great legitimacy, great legitimacy problem, because I have to read my notes, because this is all work done in collaboration with another development expert, Dr. Raja Venkatramani. So you see, he has brought out things like, in Andhra Pradesh, it ranked first in 2920, in terms of SDG 6, as having improved access to water. And at the same time, it says that water blocks that are overexploited are 92%. The houses having improved access to water is 97%. But then its SDG score is 50%. And the news headline says Andhra Pradesh is on the brink of major water crisis. This is just an example. Multiple indicators. What are we supposed to understand from this? Okay. So then I come to the last, shared responsibility. You see, the idea is, one of the other speakers have also said, there are three ways to handle the water crisis: from the supply side and from the demand side. In both, we need a behavioral change. On the demand side, on the part of the consumers; on the supply side, on the part of all the supply side actors. So from the demand side, we need to have more accountability. You're all speaking in Delhi, right? Why don't we have an app giving per capita consumption of water in the, your conclave, in a slum, in Green Park, in Housekas, in Vasant Kunj, in Vasant Vihar, so why don't we hold also the people accountable for water harvesting, for water usage, for water? Why don't we put minor competition? It is not only the government. We are all part of the problem. I think I've spoken a lot, Neha, so I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shama, for sharing this. And I really like the point that how data is right now seen as legitimate to know that what is the status, but still, because of the multiple indicator, there is so much confusion. And your last point that it's not only the government which is responsible; the accountability also lies with the people who are using it, and that brings us back to our first question of role of citizen in efficient water management. Thank you. I would like to come back to you again in the second round. So I'd now like to move to Mr. Vinod Kumar. And Mr. Vinod, he's the Director of Trade and Investment in Austrade, India. I would like to, we just had a discussion on the accountability of the on the safe drinking water, and I would like to understand from you, where does Australia stand in addressing SDG 6? both in terms of safe drinking water and irrigation? Mr. Vinod Kumar.
Good afternoon, Ms. Nega, my co-panelists and participants. Before I start, I would like to thank Ms. Antomaji, Water Digest, and Government of India for giving this opportunity. From Australia perspective, we are committed towards the Sustainable Development Goals, which is consistent with the national priorities as well as the long-standing efforts that has been taken in this sector. We developed our first voluntary national review at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development in 2018. And as rightly mentioned by Dr. Sharma, we have also launched a national reporting platform, which is available online to track each of the SDGs, including SDG 6. And we could able to track our progress over the period of time. Of course, it's a work in progress with few of the indicators being reported online on a periodic or real-time basis, and a few of them are being reported or being explored down the line. Coming to your specific question on SDG 6, while looking at a safe drinking water and irrigation, the 98% of the population are able to use a safely managed drinking water services, and the similar numbers also holds good for water sanitation. If you look at the data is collected from across 85 urban water service providers back in Australia. When you look at the water stress levels back in Australia, it withdraws 6% of fresh water to the proportion of freshwater resources that is available. And when you look at the efficiency, which was being discussed in the previous session, Australia is able to generate close to 5,000 rupees per meter cube of water, wherein the agriculture is able to contribute 33 rupees, and industry is able to contribute around 7,400 per meter cube. Still, there is a gap to be bridged, and it will be interesting to see how these numbers have changed post-COVID, and then the appropriate actions has to be taken for that as well. Yeah. So with that, I will stop with my initial comments.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vinod Kumar, for sharing the experience from Australia. Um, yeah, I would like to again go back to Mr. Divyang and continue the discussion that we had about role of the citizens. So, Mr. Divyang, my second question to you would be, what challenges do you face while implementing different programs, while implementing policies and projects directly on the ground? Would you like to share any particular case study that would be relevant for today's discussion?
Sure. So I think I resonate with our co-panelist about one of the biggest challenges about the data. I think when you look at the planning process, we need to have a very strong evidences if we design any specific program. And when we talk about the water and other services, it's very big, it's very, very critical. So what we found in terms of when we design a project, the availability of data is a challenge. The secondary data is a bigger challenge, and I think how we can take those into consideration if we want to really design a sustainable system in place. So that is the first challenge we found, and I think that and because of that we need to invest a lot of time, energy, resources in actually creating those databases. And once we create that, I think we make more sustainable design of the program, and then all stakeholders can effectively implement those programs quite well. So that's the first challenge which I would like to mention here. I just would also like to quote a small experience which we have started very recently with the Jal Jeevan Mission program, and I think that can also answer maybe what Madam was mentioning about how we are actually measuring the data and who is measuring the data. So we have started this system, and specifically we have started in rural India, but it has a very much applicability into the urban India also, because in rural the network and other challenges are much higher. So in rural India, we have started that if there is a drinking water scheme, we actually look at the value chain of water. We look at the source of a water. We look at the quality of a water. We look at the supply in terms of the quantity of water. We look at the regularity of water, and we look at the consumption of water. So we have started measuring all these things on a real-time basis. So now we have a quite advanced technologies which can be very much applicable to the any condition, and we have started into remote locations like Uttarakhand, tribal areas of Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh, Jharkhand, Gujarat. So we looked at a different geographical setup, and then we set up this whole system. Now we are getting a real-time data in terms of whether the households are getting 55 LPCD water every day, whether they are getting the disinfected water, chlorinated water every day, what is their water table actually behaving in terms of their water table in the groundwater. It's going down. So this data is very important for two users. And the first we are actually getting, and we have started this data to be shared with the consumer. We have put up a panel in the Gram Panchayat office so that every day the people can see those data points. They know that the chlorination is not happening, so they can ask for the chlorination. They say, okay, our water table is actually going down quite fast. Can we optimize and reduce the demand part, supply part? We look at some households are using more water because they may be having more members or maybe having a kettle in their households and they are consuming this water. And that actually helps them to take decisions about two, three elements. One thing, whether the water table distribution is happening or not. Second, whether they can do the rationalization of water tariff based on the quantity of use. Now, I'm talking about this rural and this is already implemented. So I think I see there's a lot of resonation in terms of the application in urban space very much possible. We have done it as a pilot, and I think now government of India is going to enhance the system across the states and the country under the Jal Jeevan Mission program. I think the power of information helps every stakeholder to take the right decisions. The consumer first, obviously, how much they are using and how much they are paying. That's as a user they are using. As a manager or as a supplier, they know that what are my pain points, whether my source is not working well, my quality is not well, and accordingly they can take decisions. And I think that way the data becomes a very critical factor of any interventions what we do. Second part, which I think is also maybe some people have already talked about, it's important in terms of about the community institution to take a ownership of the systems. I will just give you a very small example in our program in Odisha, where we have done some work in urban area in slums. So we actually looked at that the slums, which are, as mentioned, not getting the right kind of services. So we need to we started creating a kind of a slum dweller association, and we started a process called participatory need assessment. The first challenge was that whether they have a land rights within these slums or not. And I think one of the first steps, what we have started working with the slums about actually providing them the slum land rights. And this is the, I think the Odisha is the first state in the country who has provided the slum dwellers the land rights so that the all necessary electricity, water, sanitation, those services could be provided to them because those are the resources, there are resources available. So the first we created this system in place. Now this Slum Dweller Association has now an constitutional, an institutional arrangement, so they can leverage all the resources which are available with the government systems. So there are multiple schemes. There are more than 12 to 15 schemes which are lying with the different departments. But because these single interface institutions can dovetail all those schemes from the government. So I think the community institution becomes a very, very important player to ensure that these services are effectively being delivered. And I think the second part in terms of the convergence element, I think we have discussed that there are more than 12 to 15 different departments which are involved in this like water. But whether there is a convergence happening, so whether the convergence happening at the grassroots level or not, and that's why I think the whole community institution becomes a very critical factor, which I think we have done some work on ground, and I think we found a very good results on it. And I think once they started owning these processes, then the sustainability element could be very effectively plugged into it, plugged into the processes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Devyang. I mean, you rightly said the power of information is very important, and the two case studies that you have shared about the availability of data at the Gram Panchayat level and how the community institution is important in these cases, very relevant examples. Now, I would like to move again to Dr. Shama, that you mentioned about. Uh, Sorry, just one. You mentioned about shared vision for water policy. So after listening about the role of the data, about the role of the citizens, how do you see, how can we build this shared vision for water policy?
Um, thank you very much. I'm going to actually, while answering this question, I'm going to touch upon some other
Yeah,
points raised by the previous panelists.
yeah,
The
please.
first thing I want to say is I also run an NGO. I founded it after the tsunami. It's called Friend in Need India Trust. I'm not saying it to publicize, but because to react to what the previous speaker said, because I'm very familiar with rural India, especially Tamil Nadu. Now, the first thing that I say is this participatory thingy, ownership, these are all now, I think we cannot keep on repeating them ad nauseum, because I think it is now accepted worldwide that it's necessary. We need to move up now. We need to up the game. Okay, participatory. Now, how effective is it? What education should be given? I speak because, for example, the first participatory thing is about gender. Women, putting women in panchayat councils, municipality councils. There are so many women who don't come. They send their husbands there or their fathers in law. They say they're having periods, their mother in law is not well, their child is not well. So, the first thing to do is to up the game and make sure that the participatory thingies are really participatory for a shared vision. Neha, to be a shared vision, first we need to legitimize the process. For legitimacy, you have to walk the talk. You can't just say things, and there is a need everywhere. I am really talking like an activist now. But there is a need to demonstrate intention through action, through truthfulness, through truth telling. Then only you can build a shared vision. So behind my shared vision, there is this entire process of legitimacy construction. So I do agree that participatory institutions, ownership is necessary at all levels. Now, but beyond that, we have got that now, I feel. And nobody will say this is wrong. Now, how do we go beyond? What's the next step? How long are we going to talk about only this? And there only we come to shared accountability. For a shared vision, you need to have a shared accountability. Okay, let me come to now the third concept, demand, supply. I said behavioral. Now, another concept of sustainability that is running across all the SDGs is circularity. Circularity means how much of water do you reuse? How much of waste do you avoid? Okay. And here I can say in rural India, farmers, it has to be done much better than the way the message was given to the poor farmers in North India, everybody coming out in protest. I think there is, you have to do it softly, respectfully. The style is as important as the content. Okay, we cannot have policy resistance. We need to have policy acceptance. For that, you need to talk to the people. Apparently, somebody from Niti Aayog said India is now too democratic. Now, that cannot come from a person in our Niti Aayog Planning Commission, because you are then questioning the legitimacy construction in democratic societies. Okay, we are a democracy, we are not China. Okay, and so our game is going to be for governance much more complex than for the Chinese, because you need to build a shared vision, and you can't do it by force. You have to build legitimacy. So I would say there is illegitimate consumption of water all over rural areas. Okay, because water is practically free. There is no circularity. In addition to per capita consumption, we have to hail the heroes who don't waste water. There is enormous wastage of water. And coming to our friend from Australia Trade, on World Water Day, we were hosting in our NGO a water event. And we had somebody who gave the case study of Melbourne. You see, there are countries, even in Europe, France had areas which are drier than Rajasthan. Europe has practiced water management, water cooperation, water coordination since 250 years. Because ultimately, what we need is water source security. In fact, that was the topic of our meeting. Because how can you talk about making anything available when you don't even have the source? How can you tell a family, control your spending when they have nothing to spend? So you have to have water source security. And Australia has really looked at that. This is what the Europeans are looking at. We don't have an indicator of this in any data management. Okay? We do not know what water source security, what is the insecurity level. Okay? So, because what is available to be distributed. So, the shared vision again. Now then, let's come to I'm talking about so many things because as you can see, it has multiple dimensions, but it's all to do, we can start with data before getting any technology. So data on behavior should be lauded. And what was the Australian experience? The Australian experience is a government's fantastic use of data disclosure to motivate people to consume less water. They put public campaigns on how much the water circularity is increasing, how much the water usage is decreasing, and they hailed the people. They said, congratulations. So you see, finally they had droughts for more than 10 years. Their reservoirs were empty. So the only way they could deal with it is to reduce the consumption. And here you see, they spoke to the public rather than ordering the public. They created a shared vision, a legitimacy to bring cooperation and a shared responsibility. So you see, with data collection and data generation, Wikipedia is the best example. It's owned by the world, but it is regulated. I've seen crazy things on Wikipedia, and it is updated. And whenever the source is very strange, there is a caveat written, disclaimer. Please, no, we do not think that this is good. Why not we create a Wikipedia for water? It is so interesting what the previous speaker said about what is happening, his experiments. Maybe I can try it in my village, but I need a manual. How do I implement it? So we need a knowledge platform. So again, I'm coming back to data. Neha, it's legitimacy, shared, respect, okay, accountability for all. We are all part of the problem. We are all part of the solution also. So do you say the cup is half full or half empty? I leave it to you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I clearly, completely agree with you with the shared vision and the shared accountability. And Melbourne is an example for everyone to learn from how to actually bring in citizens in that shared vision and shared accountability. Yeah. So I would like to take this forward to Mr. Vinod Kumar. That is there any partnership between India and Australia uh, for ensuring water security? Uh, would you like to share if there is a partnership between India and Australia on this? Mr. Vinod Kumar, can you hear me? Mr. Vinod.
Thanks, Nega. I think the voice is dropping a bit, but yes.
Was you able to hear my question?
Yeah. Firstly, thanks to Dr. Sharma. I think so she clearly pointed out some of the examples.
Yeah.
she clearly pointed out some of the examples of Australia was able to manage. Thanks for that, for clearly narrating it across. If you look at from Australia as is deeply engaged with India, way back in June 2020, both the prime ministers, the Honorable Scott Morrison as well as Shri Narendra Modi ji, elevated the bilateral relationship into a comprehensive strategic partnership. And water is one of the key pillars in this relationship. There was an MOU that was being signed, and which has a focus area across the surface and groundwater management, urban and agriculture water use efficiency, water quality management, and environmental protection. The after MOU, there has been a third meeting of Indo-Australian Joint Working Group, which happened on September 2020. And then, if you look at, there have been a series of engagements that have happened between Australia and India, which includes the river basin planning user guide. The first session, one of the speakers clearly mentioned the importance of having a river basin planning user guide, which was developed in partnership with the Ministry of Jal Shakti, uh, based on the experience of Murray-Darling Basin, and more importantly, looking at having consultation with various agencies to document the process that is required for developing a basin plan. The second, of course, we are working, like many other my co-panelists mentioned, Australian team is also working on managing aquifer recharge and sustaining groundwater use through a village level intervention, focusing on farmers in the state of Rajasthan and Gujarat to maintain the groundwater at their respective villages. Australia is also working with multiple World Bank funded projects, which includes National Ecology Project in programs like Young Water Professional Programs, as well as in looking at a strategic operation plan with National Water Informatics Center. If you look at more recently, last year, there was an Australia-India Water Center that was established between the several Australian and Indian research organizations, and we would encourage the research organizations and think tanks to join this group and look at collaborating in water research, capacity building, and knowledge transfer. From Austrade, lastly, if you look at, we have partnered with Water Digest, and we'll be pleased to invite you all for the second episode of Australia Water Dialogue, which will focus on water sensitive urban design in May 2021. It is a virtual platform for professionals from both the countries to engage and take forward this particular discussions.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Vinod Kumar, for sharing that. And I think due to the paucity of time, I would not be able to take another third question. And thanks. It was a pleasure talking to all the panelists. Mr. Divyang had to leave because he had another commitment. And I would like to thank Dr. Sharma and Dr. Vinod Kumar for sharing their experiences with me and with the audience. I hope people listening found it very resourceful and useful. And with that, I would like to end this session. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you, everyone. We would also like to request Ms. Anupama Madhop to please take it forward, summarize, and conclude today's event with her prestigious remarks and further updates on tomorrow's session. Over to you, Ms. Anupama.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pallavi, for inviting me for the final remarks. So first of all, thank you so much all the lovely audience who has joined us for today's event. I'm sure you found this overall interaction very informative because this time it was structured in a very different way, and we thought while the World Water Day was just 2 days ago and we are on 24th, and the theme for the theme for the World Water Day is valuing water. We are all talking about global water security. So accordingly, we planned this entire program, and I'm hopeful and I'm sure you will like this overall format in which the program has been planned. Before concluding, I would like to thank all the dignitaries who have joined us for the inaugural session. It was so nice of them to take out time because with their remarks, it always set the theme for the entire program. So my thanks to the dignitaries who joined us for the inaugural session. I'm also thankful to our wonderful moderators whom we had, who interacted and took the session so well with esteemed speakers. So while I'll talk about the speakers, I would also like to give you a little bit of structure how it was planned. So for the very first session, we thought we'll talk about Sustainable Development Goals, specifically 6.4, talking about increasing water use efficiency. Same session, we wanted to emphasize on 6.1 also, safe drinking water, agriculture. Both of them were clubbed in the first session. And I was very happy to hear that the takeaways from the first session was that increasing water use efficiency will be possible through technological interventions, which is of course not new for all of us to know, but then what kind of technologies, what is the roadmap and how things have already been done in India and worldwide. That has also been talked about by Mr. Ashok Kumar. He mentioned that the kind of technological framework needs to be supported by the right kind of policies, and he spoke about the Sahi Fasal to bridge the gap and to make the efforts in the right direction. And also, he said that there should be policies to support the economic side of the beneficiaries and for right selection of crops. So let's say, I'm sure when he's talking about it and it comes from the policymaker side, I'm sure there must be some inputs and some things happening. Plus, making up of the regulatory authority has certainly given a direction, and we are hopeful that with the regulatory authorities in place in a couple of states, we are going to see some right policies and some right regulatory frameworks to take water use efficiency, increasing water use efficiency, and achieving our sustainable goal 20 by 2030. Same session, we had Mr. Mishra, who also spoke about SDG 6.6a. He spoke about technological models and the challenges being faced in implementing the same on ground. He also shared the key learnings and the strategy to develop the policy framework that enable faster use of technology in water management. We had wonderful second session, which was moderated by my friend Victor. And the takeaways from that session was, while there is a lot of emphasis on ensuring water supply to each village and city, it is equally important to ensure equity in supply where poor and marginalized do not suffer. Water is state subject. The center-state equation and nexus is really important to ensure sustained action for water security. Achieving water security is impossible. Again, this is coming from the policymakers' side. So achieving water security is impossible to achieve without citizen support. Going forward, avenues must be created to proactively engage citizens in water management models. I would like to say this is also our 6.6b, the Sustainable Development Goal. And then building capacities of local governments and stakeholders is vital value for investments made today for water security enhancements. Wastewater reuse, we all know this is something wherein it is going to be a huge player in the path of achieving water security. Cities and towns must explore innovative models to step up their ambition in this regard. And then the final session of the day, which was moderated by my friend Neha, and we had wonderful speakers who spoke about, who tried connecting and closing the loop, which was open for the initial 2 sessions. So while we spoke about citizens' role, and everyone said that it is important to have their presence and it's important to close the loop by involving the community, having the policies together. Then we had one important part which was emphasized by Dr. Sharma, who spoke about data management, the necessity of data management, that too in the right way. Also, her views were supported and strengthened by and supported by Mr. Wagila, who shared on-ground implementation case study. Though it was from the rural side, but then still he showed that how data management by the community, having the ownership of the community themselves, supported this entire project which they implemented in Orissa. And then we had another eminent speaker who spoke about another important sustainable development goal, which talks about expanding international cooperation and capacity building support to developing countries in water. That is 6.6b. So we are glad that we could hear from various eminent speakers. And on this note, I would like to thank all of you, and I hope that you will join us tomorrow also for the wonderful session, which is going to be on valuing water. And like today, the session is structured in such a way that you hear the inputs from each and everyone in a very different way. So I look forward to having all of you tomorrow also with us. We will be starting at 10. And over to you, Pallavi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anupama. With this, we have come to the end of day one. I believe that all of us have learned a lot through this enriching session, and I'm sure that all of us will take these learnings with us to our homes and work environments to improve water management and focus upon sustainable development in the society. I thank our dignitaries for sparing their valuable time to grace the occasion despite an extremely tight schedule. I also thank all the panelists for taking time off from their busy schedules and coming from various parts of India, and extend our heartfelt gratitude to our supporters, Department of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation, Ministry of Jal Shakti, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, AMRUT, and sponsors Delhi Jal Board, Electro Shield Castings Limited. Thank you, and looking forward to your active participation in tomorrow's session.